Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the great country of the United States. Good morning to every nook and cranny that our 100,000 watt transmitter gets its signals into, because we have two great geniuses in a very small studio in Caroline, ensuring that every single watt of that 100,000 watt transmitter gets into Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana. Well, anyhow, we're going to have a great show for you today. We have a great interview with a special lady that's going to be starting the show. But before we get started with the program, let's get into the studios at Caroline with our resident geniuses. Good morning, my brothers.
Jack, have you seen anybody that he's talking about?
Well, we're still working for them.
That's true. Well, it's more like Laurel and Hardy.
Yes.
Well, Stanley, this is another fine mess you've gotten me into.
Holly, don't blame me.
Good morning, Egberto, and good morning to Vancouver. Why the hell not? Well, Egberto, I had a rant, but I'm not so sure that it's appropriate. So I'm just
I
gonna
no no no
I'm
no
just
no
gonna
every
pass
no
on
no
it.
no 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 no. The mere fact that you said, Egberto, I had a rant, that makes it appropriate. So let's get busy.
Well, if you want to know Donald Trump and the risk of Trump derangement syndrome invading the control room here, he is simply a symptom of a deeper problem with our middle income folks. The and though they believe he's going to do something, he's really not going to, and he's not going to do anything for the middle income people anyway. I say middle income simply because we don't have a class system here. We do, but we don't. So the middle income America is what's driving Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is what's driving middle income America. It's kind of a symbiotic thing. And the problem with the middle income folks, including myself, is we're being squeezed to death. We're being squeezed for supporting poverty stricken individuals, those who can work but don't. I mean, there are some folks that just can't work. They're mentally ill or whatever the problem might be. And we're being taxed to death by the government to support this, and given corporate taxes, if that's such a thing. There are no such thing as corporate taxes, because they keep lowering the rate that the corporations and the billionaires have to pay. So the folks in the middle are being squeezed to death, and they think Donald Trump is their hero. Well, they haven't looked closely, but they think that a brash, no-mannered man will get somewhere. Well, he had 4 years to do that, and he didn't do anything but lower the corporate taxes so the billionaires could have more money, including him. So, middle America, wake up. You need a new hero. That's my rant.
That's a good rant.
I love it.
Well, I think there are some rings of truth in it. A lot of it's my own
No,
opinion,
no,
or
no,
all of it's
no.
my own opinion.
You see, I don't believe in rings of truth. It's either true or false. And I think every single statement that you made can be corroborated. So no, it's a great factual statement. And you see, you're going to force me before I do my interview to highlight some things on that as well, because I loved it. But Jack, we're yearning for your wisdom, sir.
Desperate in need of some
Okay,
wisdom
so
this morning here.
okay, well, I don't know about that, but I was listening to Arnie this morning, and she talked about William Shatner. He went into space finally when he was 90, and he didn't have that all-striking reaction to it. Matter of fact, he said his William Shatner's experience of actually going into space, he said he experienced the deepest grief he'd ever felt in his life, a sense of sorrow, because he knew there was so much death and despair and war. And I say waste of human life, waste of resources, environmental degradation. I cringe every time I see a case of bottled water. Water is life, but the plastic Bottle is pollution, even if you put it in the trash. We have to show some more love for our mother. We have to love our mother. Could you give up bottled water for your mother? What else could you give up for mother? She's on life support as we speak. I think William Shatner was very sad that the earth was being treated the way it is. I think he had a deep love for it, and it touched me and my feeling about the earth, mother, the one that sustains us. And maybe we need to start paying more attention to her than the latest gadget or whatever that runs your life. That's where I'm at with it.
They took
Jack,
William Shatner out into space and they didn't leave him there.
leave
Darn it.
leave my Star Trek brother alone. I love Brother Shatner. My big brother, my big brother alone. But
Smith and Hassler.
yeah. But you see, you guys start the dang show with all this deep stuff, and you have my mind all going in rings, wanting to see which one do I touch, which one do I touch. I'm gonna start with the bottled water. You know what, Jack? That I don't think people realize. I always talk about our economic system, right? And all of this is tied together. Um, there should be no reason for the bottled water industry, an industry that actually does more harm than good. But you know how it's formed? I won't give you a little country. Actually, it's a big, rich country in Africa called Nigeria. Nigeria is a country full of natural resources. Nigeria is a country with billionaires. Nigeria is a country that has so much, right? Yet, one of the biggest water companies, Nestle and others, are out there bottling water, and because the water in their public works system is not good. And why isn't it good? Because they choose not to build a system that, by the way, generally produces here in America better water than the drinking water that comes in many of the bottles that you buy. In other words, if you compare potable water, the water that comes out of your faucet, with a lot of the bottled waters that you buy, the faucet water is actually healthier, cleaner, etc. But you have the disinvestment in public resources, a disinvestment in clean water for everybody to use, something that we should all be having. Get rid of that, right? And at the same time, and by the way, the phones aren't up. I don't see Jack. I don't know, but anyhow, we those bottled waters that we see uh, is then they create a false need. Remember, when we always talk about why are prices high, or why do they create false demands? They create water is something that we are surrounded by, yet it costs so much. In Houston, the price of water is ridiculous. We have lakes and oceans and groundwater, but water is an expensive resource. We create a false scarcity. In other words, we create a false need. And what do we get out of that? We get corporations that come in then and say, we can, if we pay less taxes to create good water systems that everybody partakes of this free resource minus what it takes to clean it, we can just bottle it up. And compared to potable water, creating those plastic bottles, disposing of those plastic bottles, the damage those plastic bottles after they've been shredded by the ocean and go into the flesh of the fish that you eat, the squid that you eat, the camarones that you eat, the lobster that you eat, filled with these hydrocarbon created plastics. Much more damage is created, much more cost is created from bottled water than simply building the plants to clean water and give everybody water, either under the auspices of your tax dollars or at a marginal cost. Bringing the water thing up, Jack, should open the eyes of many. Now on Brother Howard about our middle income people being squeezed, and when we don't have the time to do our own research and figure things out, a guy like Trump can blow smoke up your bejuicy, and you think somehow he's going to be Jesus Christ reincarnated to solve your problems, even as he plays with women's private parts, even as he has children with women after women, even as he does all these things that the book that he's starting to sell now says is not something our precious God wants you to do. We have to be the arbiters of our own minds. And we have to, for all practical purposes, grow up. From the corporations making plastic bottles, when we have a good water system in Houston, we should be telling the Houston to tax Nestle and all these other people selling water, put a tax on these water bottles to improve the water system, to fix the leaks, to fix all these things that we have, because they've already sucked a lot of the money out of our system. Look at a gallon of water in the store. Compare it to a gallon of gasoline. They're both overpriced. They're both resources given to us by nature, yes, having to be processed some, but not at the cost that they're being sold. And how do we know that? Look at the profit margins of oil companies and water companies. That's all you've got to do. That's money out of your pockets directly into the pockets of the shareholders of these companies, into the pockets of the executives who command ridiculously large salaries for sitting on their butts, because it doesn't take much skill, engineering, technology, or intellect to create a bottle of water. Doesn't take much of that. And in the case of the oil companies, the people that are actually creating the product are the some of are while paid well, are the least paid in that entire chain of command within the oil industry. So your money is just there to give away to a lot of people who feel themselves entitled to be high salaried, even as they produce very little. But you don't know that most of the times. You have the belief, us middle income people that Brother Howard is speaking about, these middle income people, they're working their butts off. They don't have the time to sit down and figure out these people are just taking our money for doing very little, as I have to bust my butt every day going to work, standing up at a bus stop, making sure that people at the 7-Eleven are served to profit those guys on the top. Make sure everybody works so damn hard as a few make the profit from the skills. We don't need to be at each other's throat. People on the right, people on the left, we need to learn to stop being at each other's throat and start looking at the ball, start looking at those who are really creating the havoc in our system that's keeping us apart, that's really taking advantage of us. It's not about Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's not about left or right. It's about those who run our economic system that are bleeding us dry. And then they create stories like the one we're going to play right now so that we focus on these issues. But the reason I'm putting this one here is that this sister from Granbury, Texas, has a lot to say. So without further ado, let's go ahead to the interview. It's about 20 minutes, the interview. So cue up those calls and let's get busy as soon as this interview is over. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the program today. Today we have a very special person. Somebody's going to change the Democratic Party in Texas. Adrienne Martin of Granbury, Texas, stood up at her school board meeting and delivered a speech expressing her frustration at board members' willingness to cater to vocal extremists at the expense of facilitating a safe school environment for staff and students. Her clip went viral. She is the Democratic chair of Hood County, Texas. She is the recipient of the Freedom from Religion Foundation Award. Wait a minute, that's sort of a connection to the Reagans. Anyway, Welcome aboard, Adrienne. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. First of all, let me tell you that you started caused a ruckus in the entire state. I don't know if you realize that by finding a particular video that occurred with that organization. I don't remember the name. What's the name of the organization?
True Texas Project.
And the organization who actually was the speaker was the abortion.
Abolish Abortion Texas, I think.
Yeah,
Texas Abolish Abortion. Yeah.
that's it. Abolish Abortion Texas. But anyway,
Mhm.
before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit more about you. We're going to tackle the video. We're going to tackle what it stands for. But I think what people need to be cognizant of is that for you to be successful in a positive movement, in something that's going to make a change in your state, you first have to engage. And what I've been most happy in seeing is that you engage yourself. First of all, what do you do?
For work, I'm a hairstylist.
And what is it that got you into wanting to become politically involved? Because that is what we want. We want everybody in every profession active. What got you there?
Well, I became more engaged during the Obamacare because one of my family members has what they call a catastrophic condition, and we were having just a horrible time with insurance and dealing with insurance and getting kicked off insurance because it was too expensive. And that's really when I started paying like a lot more attention. I always voted, but that's when I actually felt like, oh, I should get involved in this. And then being I moved to Granbury from the Metroplex in '08, and that's like when the Tea Party movement and all that started, and that was pretty prevalent in Granbury. One of my hair clients said, you should come with us to the Democrat meeting, and I said, there's Democrats here, which is kind of like the response of everybody. Like I've heard that so many times since, but I said it too. And I started going to the meetings, and then the next thing you know, I was a precinct chair. The next thing you know, I was a vice president, and then the next thing you know, I was the county chair.
That is so important though, but you actually, you had a story to tell. You had relatives that had a healthcare problem, and in having that healthcare problem, you realized that politics was necessary to help and solve that problem, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now in that process, you became engaged. What did you do to become county chair to get more people in your area engaged? Because I imagine by seeing, one of the things that we notice is people need examples. In other words, you had to give permission to others that it was okay in a region that is predominantly red, predominantly Republican. You gave a lot of people a reason to say it is okay to be a progressive, it's okay to be a Democrat. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I just think little by little, I came out and got louder and louder. It just didn't happen overnight. When I first started getting to these roles, I was very kind of timid. I'm like, well, I agree with Republicans on some things. I was always trying to do like the both sides thing, which I see other people doing now, and just like, come on. But I noticed that the bolder I was in stating my principles, my values, the truth as I see it, the more positive feedback I got, which you would think it would be the opposite. But I find in general, a lot of people are waiting for somebody else to do something. And I kind of just started getting into that role more and more. And I noticed more and more people feel, and I'm not saying I'm the only one that's, but I can tell a difference that people get more courageous to say their views when they feel like they're not alone, basically.
You just stated the magic. The magic is when I talk about people having a place to land, people knowing that if they make the change that they know they need to make, both for healthcare, both for childcare, both for all these other things that we know are lacking in Texas and in many other red areas. People need that place to land. And I think having people like yourself go out there and do the work and be bold in doing the work, that actually makes the difference. And I think the Democratic Party has to do some listening to folks in these rural areas who are standing up and making a difference. Now, you found over the last few days, you in some of the scouring that you do over the internet and look at and doing the thing that you need to do. What I say is that progressives have to do the work themselves. The news media is not out there doing it for them. You have to be the news. You have to be the one searching for information. You found something, and that is what I gravitated and grabbed onto. What is it that you found?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but it also goes back to the book banning and the speaking at the school board meeting. We've got this group of what I call like extremist evangelicals, Christian nationalists, you know, and they were pushing the book banning. The woman leading the book banning, her name is Monica Brown. She's been in the news a few times. Her every meeting that she goes to, she streams on her Facebook. So I regularly check in and see what's going on. And I had a girlfriend text me and she's like, have you seen this last meeting? And so I went on and I watched, and I actually started screen recording on my phone and kind of forgot about it. It was sitting, I mean, it was filmed in January.
I think it was January 24th. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had our primary elections, and a lot of the people running for office here locally were at that meeting. And at the very beginning of the meeting, it's not shown in the clip that's online, all the candidates came up to the front. Some of them asked questions that I showed in the video, but I wanted to highlight for my local people to see which of these candidates were at this meeting. So I put a video together that showed all of them, and I put it on Facebook. I said, look at what the Republican candidates are up to. And it got very little response. And then I was going back in the other day, I don't know what day it was, Monday, Tuesday. And I was like, I need to record some new videos. So I need to delete this stuff off my app. And that video was there. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to re-edit this a little bit and throw it up on Twitter. And I did. And then the next day it was like, wildfire. It's crazy to me because that kind of rhetoric, it's not uncommon for us to hear that kind of rhetoric here. So like I said, I put it on Facebook, nobody really reacts, but then I put it on Twitter where it's got a national audience, and people were very, very shocked. I don't think that people realize where the Republican Party is going. And yeah, that is the mainstream Republican Party now.
And you know what is sad is that they were not coy in the statements that they made. They made it quite clear that the one thing they needed was Roe versus Wade overturned, and then the states could take it from there. And not only the states could take it from there, but that they would amass the force necessary to take it nationally. Just from the fact that our former president made sure to put Supreme Court justices there to overturn Roe versus Wade. Tell us some of the draconian things that they said at that meeting. And not only that, said forcefully that, you know, they are on a mission from God. Tell us some of the things that they mentioned.
Well, this abolition movement, just in general, and I'm not an expert on the abolition movement, but I know a lot about Christian nationalism. They are Christian nationalists, along with most of the Republican Party. So basically what the abolition movement is, they want like that fetal personhood, that that an embryo or fetus is considered a
human
full
being
person.
Yeah.
Yes. And
with
then,
rights.
Right. That has to be protected. And then basically they're not happy. Like if you watch the full length video, like he calls out the pro-life movement. He is not happy with the pro-life movement because they do not punish women, because the women are not held criminally liable. And that's what they want. Like that's pretty much the goal of the whole movement, is that women would be held criminally liable for abortion and would be charged with murder. He says murder over and over again, which I think is interesting, instead of homicide. I don't think people get charged with murder, but he says murder over and over again, which is kind of telling. But what he considers to be abortion, and he considers abortion to be murder, he says that over and over, is Plan B, which he gives some amazingly false information about Plan B. And let's be real, when they say Plan B, it's all birth control. Exactly. You know, the goal is birth control. So what they do is they
let's correct that for our audience. The role is to eliminate birth control. They want to make contraception a thing of the past.
Correct. I think so. They won't come out and say that, but when they say Plan B is an abortion, I mean, no, it's not. It doesn't qualify as one whatsoever. So to me, they're just pushing that. They push and see how far they can get in, and then they keep pushing, you know. Plan B is an abortion, according to this man. Paul Brown is his name. He's the director of policy for that group. IVF, in vitro fertilization, which women do to help them have babies or families. Men use IVF as well. And then, of course, just the pills, you know, like the abortion pills, and then any kind of abortion. They want anybody involved in the abortion, which is paying for it, driving, the doctor, the husband, whoever, everybody is charged criminally. But absolutely, the main focus is on the women, the mothers.
You know, it is sad because, and that part, as far that adds to the fire, when he actually says that we want to make sure that the doctors are held liable as well. But the other thing is that incest and rape should not have any, there should be no exceptions for incest or rape. And what they also specify is that, well, you know, guys make mistakes and the child shouldn't pay for the mistakes that guys make. I was flabbergasted as I took your video and I cut it up so that I eliminated some parts so that it'll fit within the platform that we had. And as I am cutting, you know, I'm concerned about how to cut to make sure I get the right context and not change the context of what he's saying. And it was difficult because these guys, people may take them as crackpots, but they have the support of Ken Paxton, who was on a podcast on this group. What's the name of the group? Texas, the True Texas Project. Their first podcast was with Ken Paxton, who is a friend of the group, who believes in what the group is doing, and who himself fought when that young lady here in Texas needed an abortion. He made sure and blocked it to the Texas Supreme Court. It is simply amazing. And what I think women like you are doing is not only your voice is going to be heard all over the state, all over the country, but more important to being able to be heard on these platforms is that the people in your own community, your rural area, and believe me, if a woman in a rural area speaks up, and it gives power to women in other rural areas to speak up and say, I don't have to be a city girl or a city woman to do this. I can actually stand up and get the job done. What you did over that I picked up on the weekend, I think I picked it up off of your Twitter that I picked up. It was like, this is something that we need to get out there.
Absolutely. People need to know, like I said earlier, I don't think most of America, especially Americans living in blue areas, realize what Texas is already like for women that need reproductive health care. I mean, there is none here. I saw comments about people going back and forth arguing like they do on Twitter, and they're saying, well, rape and incest there's an exception. No, there's not.
No, there's not.
No, there is not. There's not an exception for age. There's not an exception for fetal abnormalities. And are women dying? Probably. And it's women that are low income, poverty, that you're not going to hear about. They're sending women home from the hospital and telling them they have to go septic before they can come back to get help. The doctors are afraid to give emergency help. And Kim Paxton sued, I think it's still in the courts, so that the doctors can't give emergency help.
Right.
I don't understand why that didn't get more attention. We have our sitting attorney general suing, I think, the Biden administration in order that Texas doctors so that we can prevent Texas doctors from helping women in emergencies where they need an abortion.
Well, let me tell you what, Adrienne, it's going to take women like you, and notice what I just said, women. It's going to take women like you taking the bull by the horns and going out there and getting like you did here, getting your face out there and pushing it, because the guys, we have somebody running against Ted Cruz right now, Colin Allred. I don't know why Colin Allred doesn't take a page out of the book of that woman in Alabama that went at it and won. In Alabama, she won her race in a red district to become a state rep. Whoever is going to really beat the pants off of these Texans that are anti-women, going to have to not be fearful, but actually go out there head on and support what women say that they want, what women say that they need. Not what men say that they need, what women out there say that they need. So I want to thank you for what you are doing out there, and hopefully with this interview and with you continue being out there and getting the exposure, that more people follow in the path that you followed, to go out there and say, I'm not going to just take this sitting down. We're going to fight. The last question I always ask is, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
That's a tough question. I want people to know that Texas is not Texans. Majority of us do not support these policies, because you see people are like, well, they voted for it, that's what they get, and that's not most of Texas. Texas is a non-voting state. Voter apathy and voter suppression is what gave us the government that we have, and we're being ruled by an extremist minority. So sorry, that's not a question, but I think it's important for people to understand that, because I'm like, well, what do you think is going to happen if Trump gets elected? It's going to be Texas, but it's going to be the whole country, but it's already happening here.
Thank you so kindly, Adrienne Quinn Martin. And I want to add a corollary to that. What's occurring in Texas, they have plans to take it throughout the country, whether you're a blue state or a red state. They have rigged the court system such that the court system, which is anti-democratic, can actually overrule the will of the people in every single state. So the work that Adrienne Quinn Martin is doing is very important. She needs your support, and all women doing this kind of work need this kind of support. Before you go, I know that there is a convention in El Paso that you are trying to get a group of people to go to, but you guys would also like to be funded. Tell us a little bit about that before we close.
We have the Texas State Convention, and it is June 6th through 9th. So we got a little bit of time, but it's in El Paso. Like I said, we're in North Texas. So that's about a 10 to 12 hour drive. Or if you could take a flight. But we have 11 delegates. In Houston, you have hundreds, maybe thousands of delegates. I don't know, probably that. But we have 11. So we're a little tiny blue dot in a red, a sea of red. We're used to getting our voices kind of trampled on. So we want to be able to go to the state convention and have a voice and be able to vote for our county. So we're just trying to raise money to get our 11 people down to El Paso in June.
What's your website?
It's hooddemocrats.org. And you just go to the front page. If you scroll down, there's a little button, yellow button that tells you where you could donate. Yeah, that's it. I mean, $5, $10. So far, we've raised $210, so we're on our way.
Well, you know what? That is great. I'll make sure and do my part as well, do my little pieces. But look, thank you very much for what you're doing. I think Americans all over, from Texas right throughout the country, are proud to have women like you and the many others that are really fighting this juggernaut that's trying to get started. You guys are doing a good job. Thank you so kindly for being on. Well, Adrienne Quinn Martin, thank you so kindly for being on Politics and Right.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that interview because I love to see when regular folks decide that they are going to take on the system. In other words, I am going to make a difference. I am going to be politically engaged. People that you least expect will actually make a difference in people's lives. I think Adrienne is an example that we love to have. I want to welcome into the chat. Chat is very active this morning. Alistair Waters from Conroe, Texas. We got Eric Hayes from Atascocita Kingwood. We got Palsy Wellesley. Not sure where Palsy Wellesley is from. We also have AR in the chat. Welcome as well. Kathleen Combo, who's in the thread as well. Anyhow, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was again, when I saw the tweet in the morning, I think it was Saturday morning, I saw her tweet, and I scoured all over the internet to find this woman in Granbury, Texas, and said, "Hey, would like to first of all cut up your video, and secondly, I'd love to get you on an interview because this is much more important than the coverage that I've seen of it thus far." So thank you very much, Adrienne, for that wonderful interview. Let's go to the phones. The phone number is 713-526-5738. I'm taking calls now. Please don't wait till the end. We only have about 20 minutes or so of calls to take, so call now. 713-526-5738, extension number 2 to get on air. Please do that now so I'm not rushing you. Let's go to Donald. Come on in, Donald. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Alberto. How are you
Buenos.
today?
I am doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Good, good. Okay, so you're saying microplastics are bad. Microplastics?
Yeah,
bad.
I'm saying microplastics harm.
Next you'll be telling me asbestos was bad. We used to put it on siding on houses, brakes on cars, everything else. Where does anybody come up with this stuff that it could be bad for them before they make millions of dollars at it? There is the question. If the rings around the Coke cans, it's like the pop top. Okay, you used to pop a top. That means you peeled it off. You'd throw it on the ground and some idiot would step on it. We used to have glass bottles, and then idiots would throw them on the ground and bust them, and kids would step on them. Humans don't learn a damn thing. We just go to the next thing that's just as worse for us and keep doing it.
Let me defend human beings right now, okay? It's the psychopaths that are no good, Donald, and let me explain. For a long time, when I had a chip on my shoulder, I would think that why are people so damn foolish, right? And that is the thought process that those that control our economic system would like you to believe. In other words, people are just low information. People are just dumb. The thing about it, the hardest thing to do is to learn to respect folks who are simply purposefully uninformed, ill-informed, and misinformed. Just like we learn from birth, you take a shower. Well, some people don't take showers. You put your pants on, you put clothes on, and you follow that rule. There's nothing that says we have to wear clothes. We could actually just walk around the place, naked. But we were all programmed, we were all indoctrinated into putting clothes on, and in different countries, we're in a particular attire and seeing that as normal. We could do the same thing over bottles, over cans, over bad things over good things. But when I talk about an economic system profiting from our ignorance, that's what I'm talking about. So whereas It is first easy, my brother Donald, to say human beings, why don't they do X, Y, and Z? Well, they were simply from birth programmed that way. Why would you, Donald, you get up every morning and go to work, or when you did, I think you may be retired now, I'm not sure. But you may get up every morning and go to work where you are getting a salary not commensurate with the profits of that company, and you do it every single day, and you feel that it's okay for an executive to command 350 times what you make. And you don't revolt about that. You just think that's the way things are. And why do you think that? Because that was inculcated into your mindset from you were born, that somehow Bill Gates and Oprah, as billionaires, have earned it. These are things that you were
No. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
The emperor's new clothes. Emperor's new clothes is a good thing. We are
Okay.
not. We're when you're a black sheep or you're a leader or you're an alpha, you get pushed down from the time you enter into public school. You are pushed down, you are corrected, and you are punished anytime you ask why, anytime you question the system, anytime you step out of their boundaries or rules. And then now people have a voice because we have social media, we have other platforms, and
Hey,
that's why we're going to try to control that.
Donald, brother Donald, you just made my point, sir. You just made my
Okay,
point.
now back to the point. If red and blue make purple, right?
Yeah.
And so if you took something that was red, like the Red Scare, and you put mustard all over it and told somebody to eat it, what color would it be after you smeared the mustard? It'd be the orange scare. And that's the
Right.
great scare that's always on your mind. You have to say his name. Say his name.
Oh my
You know,
God.
you know.
All right, Donald. Thank you. That you always end with a good little joke. All right, folks. Donald is the only caller so far all line. Thank you, Donald. You have a great morning. Only caller thus far, 713-526-5738. Please don't wait till the end and jam the phones up at the end. If you're wanting to say something, please do so now. I have other subjects, by the way. 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. I started the program and I did say what else we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about capitalism, meet Uber, Lyft, and others. And the story that I wanted to talk about, since I don't have any more calls on this particular subject, is a new subject. But before I get on that, we had a major victory for voting rights in Texas as Crystal Mason, who didn't know that she had a few months before she could vote, got convicted and spent for 5 years in jail. By the way, most of the voting fraud, and I'm not talking about accidentally thinking you can vote and then filling out a provisional ballot, which is what she did. I'm talking about actually purposefully voting, double voting for Trump, etc. All of that has been occurring on the right, not the left. In fact, our own Dan Patrick lost a lot of money to a guy in Pennsylvania because when there was any voter fraud found, it was on the right, not on the left. But this woman was to spend 5 years in jail. Well, the Supreme Court finally overturned that, luckily. But sadly, she lived under that threat for a very, very long time. But let me take it a little bit further. Most of the others, people that have voted 9 times illegally, that have voted from not being in the county or the district that they're in, they all got slapped on the wrist. She was sentenced to 5 years. But anyway, I just wanted folks to know that particular story. Other story though that's important: Wall Street greed, not worker pay, is making your Uber ride more expensive. I want to talk a little bit about what Uber and Lyft is, right? Do you remember the days of that yellow cab? The taxi, you want a taxi, you make a number, call a number, and a taxi comes. This was you had to have investments in these yellow cabs individual investors or corporate investors in these yellow cabs. They were expensive. You had to have all these rules to follow, etc. Right? But then our economic system thought of a great way to get around that. And I am going to get to this after I speak to Cece. Come on in, Cece.
Hi, good morning.
Good good morning, Miss Cece. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you. I just called because for the first time I heard the radio and I happened to hear the segment with Adrienne Quinn Martin, and I am absolutely amazed about the work that she's doing. I myself live in Montgomery County, and I am thoroughly admiring her work as a stay-at-home mom. Texan right now. I can only praise the work that she's doing because we do not see each other because we don't have media mainstream to be able to look for people like her. And I myself trying to advocate for education for women who don't, fall into a situation where their life is in danger, their family life is in danger because of health issue due to pregnancy and complication. And what she's doing is remarkable. And I wanted to thank you for having her online and on the show and going, pushing her segment. So yeah, thank you
Well,
again.
look, I appreciate that, Cece, and let me just tell you that the work that you are doing, just recognizing that you have power to work, whether you have to work in your small community or starting to grow as Adrian, I told her needs to grow in the movement. This is what we need. We need the regular folks to step up and say, you know what? We're not going to let these guys continue to control these things. There are a lot more of us out there. So thank you so kindly for calling in, Cece, and you keep up your good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too now. Let's go to Marley. Come on in, Marley.
Marlene, hi, good morning.
Good morning, Marlene. How are you doing?
Hey, so I just wanted to talk about a little bit more about that lady that was convicted
Mm-hmm.
of voter fraud when she didn't know that she had a little bit more time before she could vote.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing about that was she was being held as a example
Yes.
for women, for people of color, anybody that's on the margin that, if you vote, this is what's going to happen to you. Because the person that you were talking about that voted 9 times, the Republican, he got a fine.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
facing any jail time. His life wasn't going to be interrupted. But this woman, and she actually, I believe she spent almost a year.
Yeah, in jail. She did spend some jail time till I don't remember the name of the organization, took up her case, got her bailed out, and then took her through the process where the Supreme Court finally overturned it. Yeah.
And someone that lives in Harris County, I didn't know about this until last week. She was actually on a TV program that I was watching, some news.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Joy Reid.
Right.
And my heart just broke for her. And then, when she was talking about like her neighbors, her church members, people look at that. And if you did anything, I mean, it's just going to make you say, no, I'm not going to take the chance.
Let me tell you something, Marlene. I don't know if you noticed that we were active in presenting the different cases for our own district attorney here in Harris County, and the reason why is because this occurred with a black man as well, right here in Harris County, who stood in line for over 6 hours to vote. He didn't
I
know he
remember
was.
that. Yeah, and then they
Yeah.
wanted it to move up to Montgomery County, right?
Yes, they moved his case to Montgomery County because they figured they would get a better case
Mm-hmm.
there. Now the court told them, no, you don't have the right to do that. So what the Texas State Attorney General is passed it on to Kim Ogg, our Attorney General. She could have just said, nah, there's no case here, and not done anything with it. but in a method of what I told, and I spoke to her directly, and I told her this directly. I thought that was an appeasement to the Republican Party, who is trying to make a false case on voter fraud. And in doing so, they put this guy through the same kind of hell that this woman went through. Notice the similarities. People of color. The idea is, if you go ahead and scare these people into, let me not vote just in case, that is implicit voter suppression. And that is
Yes.
it's a more
Voter
dangerous form.
intimidation.
Right. It's a more dangerous form because it's not easily quantifiable, but it's very easy to qualify. And that's why it's so dangerous, Marlene.
Well, I appreciate all the information you give everybody. I do.
Thank you so kindly for calling, Marlene, and you have a wonderful rest of your day, my friend.
You too, sir.
All right, folks. Before we took those two calls, I wanted to make a case on Uber. I may not get to the whole story, but you can read it at the newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Because this part that I'm going to say is not in the article, but I need folks to understand this. There was a time when Uber, or when taxi, there was a lot of investments that you had to make. You had to make a taxi, a car investment, and all these other things that were necessary. Well, a good programmer said, you know what, man? Again, think about this. There are a lot of people with cars sitting in the driveway. They're not using them most of the times, and they have extra time on their hands. We could maximize that, right? How can we do that? We can go ahead and write a computer program. Remember, that's what Uber and Lyft and all these pieces are. They're simply a software computer program connected to things like GPS that was really designed by we the people, the government. They use a GPS system with all those satellites in the sky for location. They use the telephone network that we all partook in creating. So here we got Uber created an application that is nothing more than a glorified active database. I repeat, a glorified, I should call it, active is not the word that I want to use, organic, organized, dynamic is what I want to say, a dynamic database that knows, because of geolocations, where cars are, and when people call in, know where the people that need to be picked up are, and know the information and collects the money, etc. So that's what Uber is, a glorified high-tech software program using bits and pieces that we the people developed around the world to go ahead and create a service for us all. Great thing. It's a good thing. You want to make some money, you can be an Uber driver, and that's great. But as what is always done in our economic system, the people that do the most work are the ones who get the least. Look, let's say some guy thought about this Uber thing. Wow, it would be great to have this application. That's a great thing. You thought about it. I am happy for you. I thought about a lot of great things. You probably thought about a lot of great things. All of us have great ideas. Not all of us have the capital to implement the ideas that we have, but nonetheless, we have a lot of great ideas. The people who created Uber or Lyft had the great idea of this piece of software that could do these things. There's a little bit more insurance costs, all that kind of stuff, but that's academic. But for doing that, even before this company is making a profit, the executives of these companies, the shareholders of these companies are making a killer of money, both with the appreciation of the stock and the money they're extracting from the companies. You pay these executives high enough, you show no profit, no taxes, no corporate taxes. Look, they use the labor of the Lyft driver, the Uber driver, and the person who invented the software, and you, the people who created the communication network that ultimately this stuff works on, both from the designs that we got from NASA and everything else. These guys are parasites. And until we change our mindset and understand that having a good idea doesn't give you the right to simply make all the spoils said idea could create, because your good idea came from the composite idea inculcated in your mind from all of us who paid taxes that you could go to a school, who created a society, an environment where your good ideas could ferment, could materialize. We have to start learning that it's a collective of all of us. There's nothing that I personally created. I have a lot of products on the market that I designed, software products. And once I used to think, oh, that is so, I can do all this crap. Until one time I realized, my God, I came from this little place in Panama to the United States of America. We had a lot of great Texans, a lot of great Americans who created a hell of a university system that allowed me to learn what was bit banging back in the 80s, to create great software that I would not otherwise have been able to create it had Intel not had been funded from these different organizations, these different governments, etc., that you paid for, and thus any potential possibility I had of success was dependent on us all. We're all in this crap together. When we realize these things, we then realize there ain't no billionaires that are worth the billions that they have. But I digress and I hit to the studio. My brother's in the studio.
Oh, preach on, brother Egberto. Preach on. Well, nothing from me. Jack, you got anything?
Yeah, when that Miss Adrienne Quinn Martin, when she was on, it made me think, are they just trying to make women into concubines? Is
Yes,
that what's
they are.
going on?
Yes, you
They
thought
just
right.
want them to have They just want them to have babies, and that's it.
Yes.
Man, guys, you're better than that. You're much better than that.
Well, I'm not.
Okay.
All right.
You are. Anyway, folks, we got to get out of here. Thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, everyone that partakes of this. Please remember to go to politicsandright.com/newsletter to get the end of this story. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics on Right, and you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
You're listening to the American